Welcome to the Momco Leadership Podcast. We believe that life and leadership are better in community. We're here to equip and encourage you as a leader and mom. We'll talk about real issues and practical tools to help you grow in your leadership, motherhood, and faith. Hi, leaders. I'm Andrea Fortenberry, and I'm so excited to be hosting our November Table Talk episode along with my co-hosts, Jennifer Iverson and Sherry Crandall. Hi, friends.
Hi, Andre.
Hello.
Can you believe it's November already?
No, I
It's wild.
cannot.
When this airs, Thanksgiving will be just a week later. So, yeah, we are in full holiday mode. And I timed this episode that we are going to be talking about today because this month we like to think and talk about gratitude. And as mom co-leaders, it's important for us to be grateful to be a leader, but then also to acknowledge and have gratitude for our team and the church partnership that we have with our group. So we are going to dive in to the questions from one of our leader videos this year called Church Connection and Impact by Pastor Ed Ollie. And I just love Pastor Ed. He is a longtime champion of the Momco, and we love that he recorded this video for us this year. It's part encouragement to you as Momco leaders to remind you that what you do makes such a difference and that it is so important. And then the other part of the video is also encouragement on how you can strengthen the relationship that your Momco group has with your church. And as we dive into this question, the questions from this video, we are going to kind of take each a different perspective. So we realize that there are varying degrees on a spectrum, if you will, with of the involvement that your church has with your Momco group. So Sherry's going to take the perspective of having a very involved church partner. Jennifer will take the perspective of our groups who have really minimal support from their church. And then I will answer the questions kind of from somewhere in the middle along the lines of that spectrum. So just wanted to share that as we get started with our questions for today. So we just have three questions, but I think we're going to have some great conversation about them. So, first one is, what is the current status of our team's relationship with our church? So, Sherry, I'll let you go first and kind of explain what it looks like to really have a strong church partner as you're leading your Momco group.
Well, I was very fortunate before I came on staff at the Momco that I was on staff at Mission Hills Church in Denver. And it's a large church with an incredibly involved, supportive staff. So I realize I'm coming from the perspective of kind of being spoiled, to be honest with you. And if I'm being super transparent, I was the contact person for our Momco leaders once I became the women's ministry director. And so what I hope to do for our Momco groups was to be the most supportive person on staff that I could be. And I used my role as a bridge to be able to tell the rest of the pastoral staff like what was going on and the positive things were happening because of the fact that we had Momco groups at our church, and we had several of them. And so the first thing that I did was I asked our team to write not necessarily a newsletter, but a monthly update. And so they would send me the update. And then during my time with the other pastoral staff, I would give the update from Momco. And it was so wonderful because it kind of gave the girls a chance to really share the fun stories and the prayer requests. You know, oftentimes you have something either tragic or really hard happening in your group. And instead of just having me to be praying, I could give that to the whole staff, and we could, as a staff team, be praying for those particular moms. So that update, that email update was a great way to do that. I also really think it's important for our pastors and our ministry leaders to get out of their office on the day that something big is happening. So make sure that you're greeting moms, that you're saying hello, that they don't see you as only the person that is appears on the big stage, that they see you as a person pulling into their parking spot or opening the door for them or just coming in and saying hi. I always invited the guys to come down and feel free to help themselves to a cinnamon roll or something as long as they talk to the moms. And what was so great is because when those littles then all of a sudden started going to middle school ministry, they already felt really comfortable
Mm.
with the pastor because he would come down and have coffee and just chat with the moms. So engagement on both ends. So as that person, if you're listening and you're on staff, it's your job and role to be that bridge, making sure that the moms that are and leaders that are part of your momco feel really loved and seen and valued. And then vice versa, that as the leader, you are showing appreciation to your church and keeping them informed and in the loop of what's going on so that they know how to pray for you, they know how to support you. And trust me, when they hear really positive stories, they're like, yes, I'm so glad I have a momco at my church. So open communication is just super important.
Mm. That's great. Thank you, Sherry. Jen, what about you? What are your thoughts on, yeah, what does it look like a little bit for a group to have kind of a minimal relationship with the church?
Yeah. What's interesting to me is we have a lot of these groups at
Mhm.
Momco, right? So a group that has minimal communication, minimal support from the church that they meet at may actually be where the church is more like a building that they utilize. I think that's the way I would describe it. Um, Leaders may or may not attend that church. It may just be in a convenient space. Um, you may be treated much like a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout troop that might meet there. So I think as far as support goes with a church that you have minimal interaction with, you really are functioning more as if you are utilizing a building, and that church may charge you to use that building. The church may not charge you to use that building. But I do think one thing is important to remember is that even if you feel like your Momco group is operating like this, like it's just in the church building as a space to meet, it is important to have communication with the church staff because the church staff may feel differently. They may view it like we have this amazing group, and you may think, well, there's no involvement at all. So I think even though um, in asking the question, what does it look like? It doesn't necessarily mean that's what both parties think it looks like. And it may not be where you want to stay. So I just think some perspective in what that might look like.
Yeah, that's good. And for those of you who your group and church are maybe somewhere in the middle, is you may have some support or involvement, like maybe it is someone that coordinates childcare because there's someone on the staff who does that. My group was one of those that there was a staff person who would do that. Or maybe they provide you with a little bit of budget. Maybe it's not completely what you want, but it could be a little bit to help toward the cost. So again, it may be a little more than just a space to meet. You might get some support, but maybe not to the extent that Sherry was mentioning. And I think that wherever you are, know that we can only control what we can control, but there are things we can do to help deepen and strengthen the partnership that we have with our church. So we're going to dive into some of the practical about that now. So next question, ladies, is what are some practices our team can follow to increase communication and trust? Because I think that's an important component as well with our church leadership. So Sherry, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I would go back to the important communication, even if you don't feel like if your church is somewhere in between or you don't even know they think you actually exist. I would say to Jennifer's point, they know that you do, or someone does because they've assigned a room to you or whatever that looks like. So behave accordingly. And what that means is like act like you're the greatest thing this church has ever seen. They're going to be so happy that they have Momco there. How do they do that? You follow their rules. When they say you have to book this ahead of time or you have to clean up or whatever the rules are for that room, please follow those. Make sure that you leave it better than it looked before you got there. Make sure you're communicating with the staff. And, if you go to church there, I would say, I think it's really important to be an involved church member. So not just a mom co-member. And if you don't go to church there, they always have other things for the community. Show up, donate to their food bank, do things that are important so that they see that you are wanting to be connected and be a part of what they're doing. And I think the other thing that I would say is just be grateful and thankful, offer to do something for them. We had the girls that would say, "Hey, on your staff meeting, can we provide lunch?" Or they would just drop off donuts or snacks and, from your Momco leaders, thank you for everything you do for us, those types of things. And you can do that whether you have someone really connected to you or not. And maybe if you don't, you will if you continue to be a positive influence, and that every time they interact with you, it's positive and they see that you are part of a change in their community. So I think those are some really practical, super easy ways, don't cost a lot of money. Writing a thank you note. Also be friends with the church secretary because or the lady at the front desk because she knows the scoop. She knows, when someone's in their office or when they're available to talk. And if you go to church, please, please, please don't try and talk to your ministry leader or your pastor on Sunday morning, even if you're going to tell them how amazing it is, because that is their job day. That's when they're on duty. So either schedule a time or write a note, but try not to be disruptive on Sunday morning is another piece of advice, I think.
Pro tip right there.
No joke.
Jennifer, what about you? What are some thoughts you have on this one?
Well, I think what's interesting is sometimes if your church is not involved in your Momco group, there's a couple of things to look at. One is anybody on your leadership team attend that church regularly. That might be a great starting point if you're interested in exploring a relationship, a deeper relationship with the church. The other thing is a lot of times our Momco leadership, like some of the rules that Sherry was talking about, some of the relationships that have been established are passed down from leadership team to leadership team. And so if your group has been at this church, let's just, for argument's sake, let's say your group has been here for 10 years, but you haven't been here for 10 years. That means there's probably like a game of telephone that has happened. And so if you are the coordinator in particular, I would just encourage you to schedule a time and just say, hey, we utilize your church and we're so grateful, but can we have a moment to sit down and just kind of chat? Because I didn't establish this relationship and I'd kind of like to know, what are the expectations that you have of us and we have of you?
Mhm.
And I think especially if you don't go to that church on a regular basis, that would be a great way to start. I also think going to one of the services, take a Sunday and say, you know what, I'm going to go to church here this Sunday and see what it's like. Because when you're trying to grow communication and build trust, like Sherry said, one of the ways you can do that is being supportive of the church. But if you don't know what's going on or what it's like, it's hard to recommend it to somebody. So if you want to suggest to your moms that they could go to this church on Sunday morning, it would be a really good idea for you to go on a Sunday morning and see what it's like. I remember one church in particular that was hosting a Momco group. And on Sunday mornings, they provided no childcare because they didn't ever have kids that would show up. They would only occasionally have like grandparents' kids that would come, but it would be like one random Sunday in the summer kind of thing. And so they didn't provide any childcare. They truly were a church that loved their community and wanted these moms to have a space to meet, but they had no more in their sort of tank to be able to support this moms
Mhm.
group. And so the leaders of that group didn't necessarily recommend Sunday morning services to the moms, but they did recommend some of the events that the church would put
Mhm.
on, whether that was a Thanksgiving, meal at some point or something like that. So they found other ways that they could support each other, but they had to have that initial conversation to know what the relationship was like. And I just want to make a note here to say that kind of the role that Sherry's describing is what we at Momco would say is the ideal
Mhm.
situation. But like you said, we don't have control over those things always. And so sometimes it's best to start with what you currently have and then see how that relationship can grow. And like you said, it all starts with communication and trust.
Mhm. Well, you ladies gave such great suggestions. I don't know that I have much more to add, but a couple of thoughts I had is yes, promoting the mission and ministries of that church. So, Jennifer, you were saying like going to the events and being aware of what's going on and sharing those with the moms in your group. Like if the church hosts a vacation Bible school or a kids camp in the summer, share and promote those things. Or if they are doing, now it's holiday season, like food drive or Operation Christmas Child boxes or whatever those things are, share those with the moms in your group. And really, we can show our churches that the mission of Momco aligns with the mission of the church, which is to tell people about Jesus and bring people into community and fellowship. And that's exactly what we do at Momco. So when we show them how it aligns, it really is beneficial. And I think another thing is to share stories of the life impact and change that happened in your group. We don't want the church to only think of us as like the problem ministry, right? We go to them like when there is something wrong with the room or the TV is not working or whatever that is. We don't want them to only hear the problems. We want them to hear the impact that we are making, that they are helping to make by whatever level of support they give. If that is just the classroom that you meet in, or the budget, or the staffing, whatever support they give, we want to show them how it makes a difference. So capture those stories. I like how Sherry, you said, like sending a regular communication. It could be an email, it could be a meeting you schedule, it could be a voice memo that you leave on their voicemail in the office, but just sharing those stories because yes, churches care about numbers, but I think what they really care about are the stories of life change. So we want to communicate those regularly for sure. Okay, well, let's dive into our third question. So we kind of gave some practical suggestions, but now let's talk about how can we each go above and beyond? So not doing just the bare minimum, but what are some ways we can go above and beyond this year to help either maintain or work to develop a strong church partnership? Sherry, you want to go first?
I think the biggest thing I would recommend is be prayerful for your
Mm,
pastor, for his family, for your church staff, and then let them know that you're
mhm,
praying for them. It could just be a handwritten note, a card that says, even if you don't attend church, I'm so grateful that your church is allowing us to meet here. And I want you to know that I'm praying for you. Because everyone I know, when someone says to you, I'm praying for you, don't you just pause for a second
mm,
and are like, oh, wow, thank you. I mean, it just means so much. And because oftentimes, as the leader, especially in a church, what you just said, Andrea, a lot of times you just hear the like, what's going wrong? Like, the lights aren't working. It's cold in here. There's no toilet paper, blah, blah, blah. And if you cannot be asking for anything and not be telling them anything, but just offering your support and just
mhm,
say, hey, as a fellow believer, I'm grateful and I'm praying for you. That
mhm,
would be my biggest suggestion.
mm. That's awesome. Jennifer, what about you?
Well, I think there are definitely situations where, in fact, when Sherry said, like, there's no toilet paper, like, that is not something you want to discover when you get to your Momco meeting. So you are going to
Exactly.
run into those situations where there are problems. But just like with our own relationships with our spouses and with our kids, we want to have a lot of positive interactions so that when we come with, hey, there's no heat today, it doesn't just feel like you're coming with another
Mhm.
complaint.
Mhm.
Um, so when I think about what we can do to go above and beyond, I just go back to the basics. Like, you need to make sure that you leave the space clean. Like, even if the established relationship is that you don't have to vac, don't leave it a disaster. Like, you can probably find a broom, make sure the garbage is in the garbage and counters are wiped down, and that you would leave it neat. It may not be spotless, but it would be at least be
Mhm.
neat. So I
Mhm.
think taking good care of the space. But then I also think look for the unexpected. If you use their coffee pot every time you have a meeting and you're like, man, this coffee pot is looking a little sad, maybe invest in a new coffee pot that's for them, not a coffee pot with your Momco label on it that only Momco is
Mm,
allowed to use. You just do it with open hands. Like, hey, if we have to buy a coffee pot every year because it gets used by everybody, then let's put that in our budget kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I think there are things that you have to take notice of. And I know when you are at your Momco meeting and you may have like children with you, like I mean, I took 5 kids to a Momco
mm,
meeting. Like the way the age was, like there was very little that I was doing other than making sure that my children weren't destroying things, right? But it's taking that extra pause to turn around or getting your kids involved. Let's see who can pick up all the trash. Things that you are also teaching your kids how to take good care of a
mm,
space.
mm,
So that's what I would say biggest thing would be a going above and
mm,
beyond is taking time to notice things.
mm. Great suggestions. I had two thoughts related to what you said, Jennifer. First is I love how you say vac, like that's your way you say vacuum, just like you like how I say mousing before using my mouse. So
For
just
mouth,
little just a
yeah.
little observation. And related thought is, when you're planning your activities and meetings, being mindful of the cleanup. So I was just thinking we have some of our groups that love crafts and so be mindful of glitter and maybe
Oh,
avoid glitter
yeah.
indoors because that can just stay forever. So maybe
And
if you're,
paint. I mean, you think about paint, like you have to be mindful of where you're using paint. So there are lots of
yeah,
things related to crafts. And I
yes,
do love crafting, but
same.
no glitter.
Same. So just, yeah, be mindful of that. And then second thing, you were talking about the coffee pot. So I have a feeling you know the answer to this because you love organizing and systems and things. So say a group cannot replace the coffee pot, but they want to do a deep clean. What's your recommendation for deep cleaning the coffee pot?
Oh, well, first talk to the staff because you don't want to descale their coffee pot without making sure that it's okay that you fill the coffee pot. Because I
Some
say
people
that.
that think that makes it taste better.
Well, yeah, there is that. But I just say that because, if somebody came in and deep cleaned something differently, think of it like loading the dishwasher. Some of us are very particular about how we load the dishwasher. And if somebody else came in and did it for me, I'm working on being grateful and not annoyed. So I would say, first of all, talk to the church staff. The other thing is just vinegar. Vinegar can clean out a coffee pot. You have to run vinegar through it and then run water through it more times than you think you need to run water through it. hot water to make sure that it's all cleaned out. So there are ways. There you go. Your little tip on how to
Yeah.
descale your coffee pot, which, by the way, also works if you're doing a Keurig. You can
Mm,
put vinegar in where the water would
mm,
usually go and run it through.
mm.
Um, I used to laugh because I think I'd run it through like 20 times, like the vinegar all the way through and
Yeah.
then water. And I would just go dump the water, go dump the water, over and over for my Keurig.
Hard dark coffee, also, if you sprinkle a little baking soda
Mhm.
and then pour the vinegar like in the basket where you put the coffee, it creates like a science project and it like,
Mm.
it
Fizzes.
fizzes and goes
Okay,
out, and you
a
can scrub that out, but a little bit.
little bit of baking soda. Or
Otherwise, you'll have a volcano erupting. Yeah, you don't want
well,
to do that, but it
then
it
you're
really is
cleaning the
amazing.
ceiling.
It works really well.
Uh,
Works really well.
Pro tip. This is random. It has nothing to do with this church partnership, but it has everything to do with vinegar. So years ago, I think Lila was in kindergarten, and I decided I was into like natural cleaning, and so I needed to clean my carpets, and I had borrowed my grandma's steam cleaner, but instead of putting the cleaning solution, I did vinegar and hot water. So when everybody came home from school and work that day, they were like, "Whoo, it smells like vinegar." And the kids were like, it stinks, it stinks. So, it dissipated after a few days. Well, then Lila brought home homework a couple of days later and she was learning words and they had to use the word not in a sentence. And so she wrote like 10 times, I do not like vinegar. I do not like vinegar over and
She
over.
to this day smell vinegar and go like, oh, I
I'll,
can't.
I'll have to ask her.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, that's what I mop my floors with, just straight vinegar and
Yeah.
hot water.
Yeah.
So,
Gets the job done and it's
nice.
natural and yeah,
Yeah,
Not expensive.
this is
Not
true.
expensive. Let me
This
just
is
say
true.
that.
it works good on towels too, if we want to
Yeah.
keep the vinegar thing going.
I love it.
But
Practical advice here.
small
Yeah.
amounts, back to the small.
A little goes a long way. I used to say that to my kids a lot with things. So a
Yeah,
little goes a long way.
yeah, for sure.
Well, back on topic, I will share
Okay.
my suggestion for going above and beyond. And it kind of is a combo of something Sherry mentioned earlier, but it's to invite your staff to your Momco meetings. Invite someone to be a speaker on a particular topic if you're looking for a live speaker or invite them to come pray. I remember the very first year I was part of a Momco group, the pastor of the church came to just give a welcome and a blessing over all of us as moms and our kids since we were going to be meeting there all year. And it was just really special. I just really appreciated
Mm.
that he did that. I got to know his face so that when we would see him on campus, we would, say hello and he knew we were part of Momco. So I would just say invite them and maybe if it's not to speak but to just sit at a table or to come have some of your snack or breakfast and let them see the magic that happens around the momco tables and we can send the emails, we can send the communication and tell them about what happens, but I think it's something really special when we invite them to come be a part of it.
I would add
One of
too,
my,
Andrea, it doesn't matter how involved your church
yeah,
is. If your church is not involved at all, that is a great
Mhm.
suggestion because what a great way to say, "Hey, we're meeting. Would you just come and pray for the moms?" I mean, what mom is going to go, "No, I don't want to be prayed for." Hardly any.
Right.
So, it may be the start of a relationship for a group that doesn't have much of one.
Yeah. Sherry,
and
were
if
you
you
saying?
have, well, if you have great involvement, I one time for Christmas we hosted a waffle bar, and I had the pastors. We bought them all red aprons, and one of the girls was really good at like she just put their names on it, and so then they had a name like that was a reindeer. It was
Oh,
very
cute.
cute. And then they made the waffles for the moms. And so as the moms were coming through the line, they got to meet them. And, one of the waffle makers was like boiling over and the other one was like burnt. But it was kind of just added to the fun and the ambiance of like they were serving the moms. And I thought that just went a long way for people because I think when they feel comfortable there, especially if they don't know Jesus and they're just like coming, they were invited. When there's a big celebration in their life or if there's a tragedy in their life, they feel comfortable at your church. And what a great way for them to say, oh, that guy that made waffles for me
Mhm.
is now, the person who's speaking at my mom's
Mhm.
funeral. I mean, that actually
Mhm.
happened.
Yeah.
And she felt comfortable there, but didn't have a church home. And she said, I thought if he could make waffles for me,
Mhm.
that he would be willing to do a sermon for a stranger. And so I just never forgot that. Like it was fun and silly, but it turned into something really meaningful.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's the power of like the invitation and just the
Yeah.
investment of relationship. And like you said, Jennifer, no matter the current level of support, when we extend and when we do what we can to deepen it, it's that's I think all that we can do is to just pray and lean in and accept and receive whatever the church provides, but then do our part to go a little bit above and beyond. Yeah. Well, this has been great conversation. Thank you both for your great ideas and just your experience. And again, leaders, we know that you are on a spectrum of varying levels of support that you get from your church. But just like we said, be grateful and express that gratitude toward whatever level of support that you get and do what you can to invest in that church partnership. And if you are a pastor or the women's director of a church where you have a Momco group, we just want to say thank you so much for hosting and being part of the mission of Momco to reach moms across the globe. So we appreciate you and thank you so much. Leaders, we know that your time is valuable. We're proud of you for investing in yourself by listening in today. We know that when you invest in moms, you change the world. We believe in you and we're cheering for you.